The jungle is quiet until it isn't. One moment the canopy hums with insects and distant bird calls. The next, a single shout can split the air and send a whole settlement into motion. Imagine walking across a land where every rustle could mean danger, where an unfamiliar noise is not curiosity, it's a threat. There are places on Earth where the rules of modern life do not apply, where contact can be fatal for both visitor and local, and where isolation is a deliberate and fiercely protected choice. Today we're going into those margins. Tribes that the world calls dangerous. But perhaps we should start by asking a better question. Dangerous to whom? That question matters. The phrase dangerous tribes makes for clicks and goosebumps, but it can also flatten real humans into caricatures. Behind every myth of the hostile tribe lies a history of encroachment, disease, exploitation, and broken promises. Many groups labeled dangerous have learned, the hard way, that the outside world brings sickness and land theft. So some communities defend themselves with force, some withdraw into seclusion, others practice violence only when survival is threatened. This video will show you the raw stories, the tactical realities, and the ethical lines, why some human groups are so determined to stay unknown, and why you absolutely should not try to find them. Let's set the scene another way. Picture a narrow beach at dusk, palm fronds shadowing the sand. On the other side of a reef, a figure watches from the trees. He is holding a spear. He is not waving. His eyes observe foreign boats like a hawk sees mice. He has never seen a camera before. He has never seen a tourist. If you step past his reef, you are crossing a line drawn in blood by generations who learned that strangers bring disease, guns, and chains. You are walking into a living memory. That reef is not just coral, it's a boundary. Why do we care about these stories? Because they test us. They force us to ask, how do modern societies treat peoples who refuse assimilation? Are we entitled to civilize them? And pragmatically, what happens when curiosity meets isolation? In many cases, the result is catastrophe. So who are these groups, and why have they earned reputations that chill the spine? We'll meet communities that defend their lands with lethal force, groups that vanished into the forest to escape slave raiders and have not come out, and people who carry living memories of contact that wiped out whole villages. But we'll also meet the other side of that story. Elders who teach their grandchildren how to hide footprints, families who keep fires small to avoid detection, leaders who enforce strict rules against strangers at the riverbank. We'll unpack the reasons behind defensive violence and explore the technical reality of hostility, how geography, disease, historical violence, and cultural preservation turn a place into a high-risk zone. The stakes are not abstract. In the 20th and 21st centuries, contact has had brutal consequences. Entire peoples have been devastated by influenza or measles the moment a trader or missionary arrived. In other cases, colonial-era raids stole children or enslaved people, leaving a legacy of trauma that shapes current reactions. So when we say dangerous, remember that danger runs both ways. Outsiders risk death, and isolated communities risk extinction. That brings us to the core ethical rule of this video. Knowledge without action can be powerful. Knowledge plus reckless action is deadly. We'll tell stories, dramatic ones, yes, but we'll also insist on boundaries. We will not give directions, coordinates, or how-to details. We will not feed voyeuristic impulses that encourage invasion. Instead, this video aims to explain why some tribes are so protective and what the world can, and must, do to respect them. Let's begin with a pattern common to many such communities: extreme isolation as defense. Across continents, groups have chosen separation over assimilation. For some it's geography: steep mountains, impenetrable swamps, ringed islands. For others, it's culture, strict taboos and codes that forbid interaction. The result is the same: an intentional refusal of contact. Within those zones, strangers become a threat. There are recorded instances of people paddling ashore and never returning, of helicopters overhead chased away with arrows, of entire search parties repelled. These are not horror stories invented to frighten tourists, they are survival strategies. Another recurring theme is brutal reciprocity. When outsiders stole land, killed livestock, or kidnapped people, communities learn to respond with force. Imagine for a moment that 3 generations ago, armed bands rode into your valley, burned your houses, and carried away your children. How would you teach your grandchildren to react to strangers? Fear becomes knowledge. Knowledge becomes protocol. Over time, these tactics harden into customs that outsiders interpret as hostility, but they originate in justified defense. From a practical perspective, the most dangerous label correlates with several factors: the community's history of contact, its isolation strategies, and its access to weapons or stealth tactics. Groups who've faced slavers or colonizers often develop formidable knowledge of terrain and ambush. Insular islanders may master canoes and reef navigation, turning every lagoon into a minefield for invaders. Mountain peoples build watch systems and use vertical terrain like a force multiplier. A few archers on a ridge can stop a column below. These are not cinematic tropes. They are practical applications of environmental mastery. Now, for a moment of storytelling that illustrates these dynamics without naming locations or giving a hunting map. Picture a forested river bend where the villagers have concealed pits and sharpened stakes. A logging crew, thirsty for timber and armed with chainsaws, heads upstream. They know the law but not the history. At dusk, a hunter slips to the shore, sets a smoke signal, a small mark to let others know of the strangers. Within hours, canoes appear out of the reeds. Men and women with painted faces approach, shouting in a language the loggers do not understand. Weapons are brandished. The signals are clear: leave. For those loggers, the decision is simple. For the tribe, the decision is survival. When one side refuses to leave, the result can be lethal. This is the paradox that fuels sensational headlines. Outsiders see attack. Insiders see enforcement of a boundary that protects the living. As we go further into this topic, you'll hear the dramatic episodes that made headlines. Shipwreck rescues turned violent, illegal gold miners chased from deep valleys, pilots forced down by arrows, and we'll analyze why each incident unfolded the way it did. But we won't stop at drama. We will also examine the legal and moral frameworks that seek to protect these peoples. Many countries have recognized the rights of uncontacted or isolated groups on paper, demarcating protected zones, banning outsiders, and restricting aerial surveys. Humanitarian organizations argue that these protections aren't just ethical. They are necessary for public health. Vaccine-preventable diseases are still the real silent killer. Finally, Block 1 ends with a warning and a promise. The warning: curiosity can kill. Not metaphorically, literally. The promise: in the next block, we'll profile several of the best documented cases, but with care. We'll treat them not as monsters, but as communities with histories, rules, and reasons. We'll use dramatic narrative to hold attention, but we'll center respect, context, and restraint. You'll learn how geography, history, and culture create the conditions for danger, and why that label says as much about the outside world as it does about the tribes themselves. If you're ready, next we'll move into the first set of profiles. Islanders who violently repel outsiders, forest peoples who vanished for decades after slavers, and mountain clans who turned the terrain into a fortress. We'll hear eyewitness accounts, archival descriptions, and the sobering consequences of contact. Remember the rule: we'll tell the stories, but we will never give you the map. Deep in the jungles of Papua New Guinea, a helicopter's echo fades into the canopy. Below, a group of explorers prepares to meet a tribe few outsiders have ever seen, the Korowai, rumored to still practice cannibalism. For years, they were considered a myth. But now, camera crews, anthropologists, and adventurers are desperate to uncover the truth. The Korowai live high above the jungle floor, in treehouses perched up to 40 meters high. They say it's to protect themselves from evil spirits and intruders. Their homes sway in the wind, overlooking a sea of green. But what really keeps outsiders away are the stories. According to locals, the Korowai once believed in Kakua, witches who lived among them disguised as ordinary men. When a tribe member died mysteriously, they would accuse someone of witchcraft. The accused would be executed, and sometimes eaten, to purify the community. In the humid silence of the forest, one explorer recounts his experience. We were told to stay silent, not to look anyone in the eye. The Korowai appeared out of the trees, painted faces, spears in hand. They didn't smile. No one knows exactly when cannibalism ended, or if it ever truly did. The tribe insists it was long ago, but the fear remains. Even seasoned anthropologists describe a tension in the air, a feeling that, in this place, civilization's rules don't apply. And the Korowai aren't the only ones who make outsiders nervous. In the Andaman Islands, deep in the Indian Ocean, lives one of the world's most isolated tribes, the Sentinelese. For over 60,000 years, they've lived without contact with the outside world. When a helicopter flew over their island after the 2004 tsunami to check for survivors, the crew was met with a hail of arrows. They want nothing to do with us. In 2018, a young missionary named John Allen Chow tried to bring Christianity to North Sentinel Island. He paid local fishermen to take him near the shore, a violation of Indian law, which bans anyone from approaching within 5 kilometers. He rowed to the beach, Bible in hand. The fisherman later saw the Sentinelese dragging his body away. He was never seen again. The Sentinelese aren't hostile for no reason. History has taught them what outsiders bring: disease, violence, and exploitation. They watched as neighboring tribes on other islands were wiped out after contact. They chose isolation as survival. But not every dangerous tribe lives in a jungle or on an island. Some are hidden in mountain fortresses and deserts, where the laws of modern nations mean little. In the Sahel region of Africa, the Tuareg, known as the Blue Men of the Desert for their indigo robes, have ruled trade routes for centuries. Proud, fearless, and nomadic, they've been both warriors and smugglers, protecting caravans or raiding them depending on who pays more. Their code of honor is ancient, their hospitality legendary. But cross them, and you vanish into the dunes. Then there are the Kukukuku, or Onga, from Papua New Guinea's eastern highlands. For decades, they were described in colonial reports as headhunters who displayed skulls as trophies. Some villages still preserve ancient weapons and rituals, though much of their culture remains closed to outsiders. Even modern Papua New Guineans tread carefully near their territory. Imagine walking through the misty valleys of the Onga lands, the earth red beneath your feet, the air thick with humidity. In the distance, war chants echo, rhythmic and haunting. These are people who've lived without borders, without governments, for millennia, a living time capsule of human resilience and danger. But what makes these tribes truly fascinating isn't just their isolation or violence. It's that they represent the last untouched corners of humanity, worlds where ancient laws still rule and outsiders are the intruders. Still, curiosity has always pushed humans to cross forbidden lines. Explorers, journalists, and even governments have tried to reach these tribes, often with disastrous results. The question is, why? Why risk your life to meet people who clearly don't want to meet you? Some say it's the thrill of the unknown. Others argue it's about understanding ourselves, seeing what humanity looks like when stripped of technology, money, and politics. But every attempt to make contact risks destruction, not just for the outsiders, but for the tribes themselves. When a modern person visits an isolated tribe, they bring bacteria and viruses that can kill entire villages. A simple flu could be deadly. That's why governments now protect many of these tribes by law, forbidding contact. But protection can be a double-edged sword. In South America, dozens of tribes remain hidden deep in the Amazon, the uncontacted tribes of Peru and Brazil. Satellite images show their clearings, huts, and fires. Illegal loggers and miners often cross into their territories, bringing violence and disease. These tribes defend themselves the only way they know how, with arrows and spears. In 2011, a helicopter captured one of the most haunting images in modern anthropology. A group of uncontacted Amazonians, their bodies painted red, aiming arrows at the sky. They weren't welcoming explorers, they were warning them. The Amazon tribes, like the Korowai, the Sentinelese, and countless others, live on a knife's edge between survival and extinction. Modernity creeps closer each year, but they fight to remain unseen. To them, we are the dangerous ones. And maybe they're right. As the night falls over the jungle, a distant drumbeat begins. Fires glow between the trees. For the tribes that have survived isolation, the darkness is their ally, a reminder that they are still free, still fierce, still untamed. The explorers retreat to their camps, whispering about what they've seen or think they've seen. Some swear they heard chanting near the river. Others claim they saw movement in the shadows. But no one dares go back. Because in these lands, curiosity isn't just dangerous. It's a death sentence. Yet tomorrow, another helicopter will come. Another camera crew will arrive. And the world's last wild tribes will continue their silent battle against the modern world. Unseen, misunderstood, and still feared. The question that lingers is not whether they're dangerous, but whether we are. Across the world, there are tribes whose names still strike fear. Not because they live in isolation, but because they've learned to fight back. To protect their land, their identity, and their ancient way of life, these tribes have turned defiance into survival. Let's begin in Ethiopia's Omo Valley, a place where time moves differently. Here, under a burning sun and red dust skies, live some of Africa's most warrior-like peoples, the Mursi, the Hamar, and the Karo. Each tribe has its own rituals, but all share one thing: honor through blood. The Mursi are instantly recognizable. Their women wear lip plates, stretching their lower lips into discs that can reach extraordinary sizes. But behind that aesthetic lies a warrior culture. Mursi men prove their courage through stick-fighting duels, brutal contests called danga. Two men face each other with long poles, fighting until one bleeds or falls. To an outsider, it looks savage. To them, it's sacred, a rite that defines manhood, bravery, and social status. The men who win become heroes. The ones who lose, sometimes forever marked by scars, earn respect for facing the challenge. Further south, in the Hamar tribe, scars tell a story of pride. Young men must leap naked over a line of cattle to become adults, a ritual that determines whether they can marry, own cattle, or fight. Women, too, play a shocking role. They ask to be whipped before the ceremony, bearing the scars as proof of loyalty and devotion to the family. But danger in the Omo Valley doesn't come only from their rituals. It comes from the modern world closing in. Dams, deforestation, and land seizures threaten their territories. The warriors who once fought with sticks now find themselves battling governments and corporations. In these lands, the line between ancient and modern warfare blurs. And it's not just in Africa. Thousands of miles away in the Philippines lives the Kalinga tribe, the last of the traditional tattooed warriors. Once feared for headhunting, the Kalinga were known for defending their villages with unmatched ferocity. Each tattoo represented a kill in battle, a dark but powerful symbol of honor. Today, the headhunting has ended, but the spirit remains. Elderly tattoo artists like Wang Odi, now world famous, still ink the old designs by hand, using thorns and soot. Each mark connects the living to their ancestors, warriors who refused to surrender even when modern armies came with guns. In the dense jungles of South America, another battle unfolds, not against rival tribes, but against extinction itself. The Yanomami, straddling the borders of Brazil and Venezuela, have fought miners and invaders for decades. Their lands are rich in gold, and outsiders come armed with greed. The Yanomami are peaceful by nature, spiritual people who believe in the forest spirits known as Zaparipe. But when their world is threatened, they fight with everything they have. In 1993, miners massacred dozens of Yanomami in the village of Haxamu, an atrocity that still haunts the tribe. Since then, they've organized patrols, forming alliances to defend their home with bows, arrows, and courage. Every time a helicopter flies overhead, they prepare for war. From the swamps of New Guinea to the highlands of the Andes, from deserts to jungles, these communities have become the last strongholds of autonomy. But among all of them, there are few as feared or as misunderstood as the tribes of West Papua. For decades, West Papua has been a land of rebellion. Tribes there, such as the Dani and Lani, have faced military crackdowns and cultural erosion. They've been called primitive, even violent, but their so-called aggression is often desperation. Desperation to protect sacred land, sacred traditions, and the spirits of their ancestors. The Dani warriors, their faces painted black and red, wear elaborate headdresses of bird feathers and boar tusks. In their hands, spears carved with precision. Their battles once settled tribal disputes. Now, they've become symbols of resistance. Imagine a sunrise in the Balium Valley. Mist covers the mountains, and from the distance comes the low hum of chanting. A line of warriors emerges from the fog, their bodies painted, their eyes fierce. They gather before a sacred pole, preparing for battle. Not against another tribe this time, but against bulldozers and men in uniforms. These images are real. They've been captured by photographers brave enough to venture there, though many who tried were detained or deported. But perhaps the most terrifying tribe isn't known for open combat. It's known for disappearing intruders without a trace. Deep in the Amazon basin lies the territory of the Mashco-Piro, one of Peru's most elusive uncontacted tribes. They move silently through the forest, leaving only footprints and broken branches. Locals whisper that anyone who follows those signs never returns. In 2015, tourists on the Madre de Dios River captured footage of Mashco-Piro warriors on the banks, their bodies painted, their arrows drawn. Peruvian guard tried to communicate. Moments later, he was struck by an arrow and died before reaching help. The government immediately reinforced the ban on contact. What makes these tribes so dangerous isn't just their weapons. It's their unpredictability. You don't know what they believe, how they'll interpret your presence, or whether you've already crossed a sacred line. Some anthropologists argue that we should never contact them. Others say leaving them alone only ensures their erasure. But the truth is, every encounter risks tragedy for both sides. In the depths of Borneo, the Dayak once practiced headhunting to avenge the dead. When a tribe member was killed, the spirit could not rest until the killer's head was taken. In 2001, during a violent ethnic conflict, reports emerged of Dayak descendants reviving those old customs. Videos showed warriors parading severed heads through the streets, proof that even in the 21st century, ancient vengeance can still burn hot. It's chilling, but it tells a truth. Under pressure, the ancient instincts of survival, honor, and revenge resurface. And that's the thread connecting all these tribes, from the Omo warriors to the Amazon defenders, from the West Papuan rebels to the Dayak hunters. They all live by the same law. Protect your people, your land, your spirit, or die trying. As night descends over these forgotten corners of the world, one realizes something profound. These are not savage people. They are survivors of centuries of conquest, slavery, and exploitation. Their violence isn't meaningless. It's a language of resistance. And in a world that's erasing cultures faster than forests, that resistance might be the only thing keeping them and their stories alive. Tomorrow, as the morning light touches the treetops, a new chapter of confrontation begins. Outsiders will still come, cameras will still roll, and somewhere, a young warrior will pick up his spear. Not to attack, but to defend the last fragments of an ancient world that refuses to disappear. There are places on Earth where maps fade into mystery. Regions so remote that satellites can't pierce the green canopy, and no flag dares to claim them. Here, civilization ends and something older, wilder, and infinitely more dangerous begins. These are the homes of tribes who have never bowed to kings, gods, or governments. Tribes that time itself seems to have forgotten. In the middle of the Indian Ocean lies one of the most forbidden places on Earth, North Sentinel Island. A speck of land surrounded by turquoise waters and coral reefs. It looks like paradise from above, but for those who try to approach, it's anything but. The Sentinelese tribe has lived there for tens of thousands of years, isolated from the rest of humanity. No one knows their language, their religion, or even their true population. What is known is simple. They kill on sight. In 2006, 2 fishermen drifting too close were shot with arrows and buried on the beach. In 2018, an American missionary named John Allen Chow attempted to make contact. He believed he could bring Christianity to the island. What he brought instead was his death. The moment his kayak touched the sand, arrows rained down. He ran, wounded, but tried again the next day. That was his last mistake. His body was never recovered. Helicopters that approached afterward were met with volleys of spears. One Sentinelese warrior stood on the beach aiming his bow toward the sky, a warning to the entire modern world. Stay away. And yet, that defiance isn't cruelty. It's survival. Every contact with the outside world brings disease, exploitation, or death. The Sentinelese have learned, across generations, that isolation is the only shield strong enough to keep their world intact. But they aren't alone. Across the jungles of Papua New Guinea, there exist dozens of tribes barely touched by modernity. Among them, the Korowai gained global attention for a horrifying reason: reports of ritual cannibalism. For years, explorers claimed the Korowai executed and ate accused sorcerers. Photographs of towering wooden treehouses, built 30 meters above ground to avoid spirits and enemies, only deepened the legend. Western journalists swarmed the jungle, eager to find proof. Some brought cameras, others brought fear. The truth, however, is more complex. Anthropologists now believe that cannibalism among the Korowai was largely symbolic, a form of extreme justice rather than hunger. In their cosmology, killing a kakua, an evil spirit that took human form, was an act of cleansing. Yet for decades, outsiders turned it into spectacle. The Korowai became the cannibals of New Guinea, a label that stripped them of humanity, reducing their ancient culture to horror headlines. And here lies a haunting irony. While outsiders filmed them for entertainment, the Korowai's forests were being stripped bare by loggers. The tribe that the world feared most was itself being consumed, not by violence but by greed. Move north into Siberia, and you find the Nenets, reindeer herders living in the frozen tundra. They are not violent. They are not hidden. Yet they are disappearing faster than almost any other indigenous group. For thousands of years, the Nenets followed the seasons, migrating hundreds of miles across the Arctic Circle with their herds. They built tents from reindeer hides and lived under the dancing lights of the aurora. But in the 20th century, Soviet policies forced them to settle, to send their children to state schools, to abandon their migrations. Today, pipelines cut through their ancient routes, spilling oil across the snow. The Nenets do not shoot arrows or build walls. Their resistance is quieter, a refusal to let their culture vanish completely. Every winter, some families still pack their sleds, defying the state and retracing the paths of their ancestors. From the ice to the fire, the Amazon rainforest still hides tribes no outsider has ever met. The Awa, the Kawahiva, the Flecheros, their names are whispered among loggers and poachers like ghost stories. The Flecheros, the Arrow people, are especially feared. Hunters in Brazil tell tales of silent attacks, of arrows appearing from the shadows, striking without sound or warning. They live entirely without metal tools, and their bows are said to be powerful enough to pierce bone. Satellite images show their clearings deep in the forest, circles of thatched huts, smoke rising faintly. But every attempt to contact them has ended in violence. They do not want the world. And after seeing what the world did to their neighbors, who can blame them? A century ago, thousands of Amazonian tribes existed. Now, fewer than 200 remain. For the Flecheros, violence is the last wall between survival and extinction. And still, stories of these remote tribes draw the curiosity and arrogance of outsiders. Adventurers, filmmakers, missionaries, all convinced that they can make contact, bridge the gap, or save the primitive. But sometimes, those who seek the unknown end up consumed by it. One of the most chilling cases happened in West Papua in 1961, when a group of Dutch explorers vanished near the Balium Valley. Locals spoke of the Asmat tribe, known for their headhunting rituals and warrior culture. When rescue teams arrived, all they found were scattered bones and spears. Years later, when Michael Rockefeller, the son of a powerful American family, disappeared in the same region, the legend of the Asmat exploded. Some claimed he drowned. Others whispered that the tribe had killed and eaten him as revenge for colonial offenses. The truth remains buried beneath jungle vines and silence. But what fascinates the world most about such tribes is not their violence. It's their untouched humanity. In them, we see what humans once were: fierce, free, and entirely unbound by the rules of nations or religions. In the deep forests of Central Africa, the beauty pygmies still live as their ancestors did 20,000 years ago. Their songs echo through the trees as they hunt with nets and spears, moving like shadows beneath the canopy. They laugh easily, fight rarely, and see the forest as both mother and god. When war came, when armies invaded their territory, they simply vanished deeper into the trees, as if swallowed by nature itself. And in a strange way, that may be their greatest weapon: to disappear, to slip away from modernity's reach, to remain unseen. Because for all the technology and power of the outside world, there are still corners it cannot conquer. Mountains that remain sacred, forests that remain forbidden, islands that remain deadly. Each tribe that endures, from the Sentinelese with their arrows to the Nenets with their reindeer, holds up a mirror to our civilization. They force us to ask, who is truly advanced? The one who conquers the earth or the one who belongs to it? Perhaps their refusal to change, to evolve, is not ignorance. Perhaps it's wisdom, the kind we've forgotten. So when explorers, journalists, and governments label them as lost, maybe it's the modern world that is truly lost, lost in greed, speed, and arrogance. Because while we dig deeper, cut faster, and build higher, these tribes continue to live the same way they always have, breathing in rhythm with the planet, untouched and unbroken. At the very edge of civilization, they wait, watching, surviving, reminding us that for all our progress, we are still children playing with fire. They say the further you move away from civilization, the closer you get to truth. And maybe that's exactly what these tribes have been guarding all along. When we talk about the world's most dangerous tribes, the Sentinelese, the Korowai, the Flecheros, the Asmat, we often imagine violence, arrows, and death. But beneath the fear and mystery lies something deeper, a lesson about who we are and what we've lost. Let's be honest, we call them dangerous because they reject us, because they refuse our rules, our religion, our technologies, our definition of progress. But to them, we are the danger. We are the invaders who destroy forests, poison rivers, and bring invisible diseases that wipe out generations. From their point of view, it's not they who are primitive. It's us who have forgotten how to live in balance with the earth. Consider the Sentinelese once more. Their entire world fits within a few square kilometers, and yet they've managed to survive for 60,000 years without cities, roads, or nations. No wars, no industrial collapse, no addiction to power or machines. Just pure, human resilience, hidden beneath palm trees and silence. Can the same be said about us, the so-called civilized world, where a single virus can bring nations to their knees, where people die of loneliness surrounded by millions, and where entire ecosystems vanish for the sake of a profit line? Maybe the real question isn't why they reject us. Maybe it's why we can't live without conquering them. Because deep down, there's something in the modern human spirit, an obsession to dominate, to convert, to fix what isn't broken. But these tribes, in their silence, seem to whisper back, we don't need saving. You do. When explorers step onto forbidden beaches, when missionaries raise crosses before arrows, when cameras zoom in on sacred rituals, it's not bravery. It's arrogance dressed as curiosity. The story of John Allen Chow, the missionary who died trying to reach the Sentinelese, is not one of martyrdom, but of a tragic misunderstanding. His death wasn't senseless. It was symbolic, a clash between two worlds that cannot coexist, one that seeks to preserve life, and another that seeks to possess it. And that story repeats again and again across continents. In the jungles of the Amazon, illegal miners and loggers move ever closer to the last uncontacted tribes, not to understand them, but to exploit the land beneath their feet. Every day, the sound of chainsaws replaces the song of birds, and every tree that falls brings the frontier of extinction closer. Governments talk of protection, of reserves, of humanitarian missions, but greed moves faster than law. Some tribes are not killed by arrows. They're erased quietly, through pollution, disease, and forced assimilation. An entire world vanishing not in war, but in silence. Yet even in that darkness, there's hope. Because as we rediscover the value of the natural world, as climate crises and environmental collapse force us to rethink our place. The wisdom of these tribes begins to shine again. The Nenets of Siberia, herding their reindeer through blizzards. The beauty of the Congo, singing to the forest that sustains them. The Korowai, building homes in the treetops to live closer to the sky. They all remind us of something essential. Humanity once knew how to coexist. Their stories are not relics of the past. They are warnings from the future. When the modern world collapses under its own weight, when machines fall silent and cities crumble, it won't be the powerful who survive. It will be those who remember how to listen, to nature, to instinct, to each other. The very people we once called primitive. Think about that for a moment. Who truly understands survival, the one who can launch rockets to Mars, or the one who can build a fire in the rain, find water in the desert, and live off the land without destroying it? These tribes, the ones we fear, might be the last guardians of a knowledge older than civilization itself. They know that every hunt, every harvest, every birth and death must be in harmony with the rhythm of the earth. Break that rhythm and everything collapses. Perhaps the reason they close their world to us isn't just fear, but protection. They are protecting something we can no longer touch. A way of life uncorrupted by greed, untouched by the noise of our machines. And maybe, just maybe, that's why so many who encounter them never come back. Not always because they're killed, but because they're changed. Missionaries who once sought to convert them end up questioning their own faith. Explorers who once hunted for fame return haunted by guilt. Anthropologists who lived among them often speak of a peace they've never felt before. A silence that makes the modern world feel deafening. The danger, it turns out, isn't the spear. It's the mirror. Because to see them clearly is to see ourselves. Stripped of comfort, stripped of illusion. What we find isn't barbarism, but simplicity. And maybe that's what terrifies us most. As the world races toward the future, these tribes remain like ancient anchors, holding humanity to its roots. And though their existence is fragile, their message is eternal. You can't conquer the earth without destroying yourself. And so, the next time you hear of the most dangerous tribes in the world, remember, the danger doesn't lie in their arrows or their rituals. The danger lies in our inability to let them be, to let mystery exist, to let wilderness remain wild. Because maybe the true danger is not the isolation of these people, but the emptiness inside us, the silence we've lost when we stopped listening to the world. Their forests, their islands, their frozen lands, they are not just borders. They are mirrors of what we could have been had we chosen differently. And perhaps, in their refusal to join our world, they've saved something far more valuable than gold, power, or progress. They've saved humanity's last connection to purity, the ability to live without owning, to survive without destroying, to exist without needing to be more. So yes, they are dangerous, but maybe the world needs a little danger. Maybe it needs people strong enough to resist civilization's pull, to remind us of what it means to be human. Because in the end, their arrows are not aimed at our bodies. They're aimed at our conscience. And if this story made you think, if it made you question what civilized really means, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We bring you the untold histories, the forgotten truths, and the stories the world tries to bury. Because only by knowing where we came from can we understand where we're going.